Alright guys, we're literally counting down the hours until Shadow of the Erdtree DLC finally drops, and if you're one of the few remaining people that still didn't get everything up and ready, here are 5 of the most important side quests that you might want to complete until the new DLC drops, specifically for some very strong weapons, armors, and even some unique talismans that will get you absolutely up and ready for everything. Let's get started with the Blaidd questline, especially if you want the Royal Greatsword as well as the Blaidd armor set. Both of these not just look amazing, but the weapon art on the Royal Greatsword is one of the highest damage dealers in the game. And this ties very well with the Ranni questline, which we're also going to cover. And by the way, you're going to start that by speaking to her the first time at the Church of Vela right after unlocking Torrent. So in the Blaidd questline, your first step is to head over to the Mistwood Ruins. This is the first time you're going to hear Blaidd's howl. Once you hear that for the first time, head over back at the Church of Vela and ask Merchant Kale about the howl, point at which is going to give you the finger snap gesture. Then what you do is head over back at the Mistwood Ruins, use the finger snap gesture, and this is when Blaidd will jump down in front of you. Speak to him and he's going to tell you he's searching for somebody going by the name of Darrywill. The next step is to find Bloodhound Knight Darrywill right here at the Forlorn Hound Everjail in South Limgrave. Blaidd is also available as a summon to make the fight a lot easier. But the boss drops the Bloodhound Fang. It's one of the most amazing top tier dex weapons in the game with a crazy good weapon skill on it. This literally carried me through the entire game on my newest playthrough. Talking to Blaidd outside of the Everjail, he's going to give you a Somber Smithing Stone as well as instructing you to speak to Blacksmith AG on the road to the manor in Liurnia. This is actually a great way to also unlock the Carrion Filigree early, which is an awesome option for any weapon skills that have high FP costs, like the Dark Moon and the Royal Greatswords we're gonna get in just a bit. Now the third step in the questline happens after meeting Ranni at the Three Sisters in Liurnia, so you're going to have to continue to progress in the game, head over to the Caria Manor, also defeat Knight Loretta, which is going to give you access to the Three Sisters. And from this point on, head over and talk to Ranni at the top of Ranni's tower. You're going to now choose the option to enter her service, which is going to also require you to speak to her 3 advisors. So this includes War Counselor AG, Blaidd, as well as Preceptor Seluvis before moving on. And Seluvis also has his own quest line, which we're going to cover in just a little bit, and he also tasks you to meet him face to face at his nearby tower. So definitely go ahead and do that before proceeding any further. Now the next part is skippable, however we're still going to do it now as it lets us unlock the Radahn festival a bit earlier. So after all of this is done, you can go ahead and find Blaidd and speak to him in his new location right here in the center east part of the Siofra River. Talking to him, he reveals you should speak to Seluvis again to find out more info that he's been withholding. So we're gonna head over back at the Seluvis Rise, speak to him, and he's going to give us the introduction letter that we have to bring now to Sorcerer Sellen, which we're gonna find right here at the Waypoint Ruins. In giving her that letter, she's going to inform us that reaching Nokron can only be done by defeating Starscourge Radahn, which will likely reveal the hidden entrance to it. So now that we have that information, we can head over back to Siofra River and inform Blaidd about this information, who's now going to make his way to the Redmane Castle and prepare for the Radahn Festival. And this is how you're going to trigger that a bit earlier. However, you can also trigger it in at least a couple more methods, including by entering Eltis Plateau, either via the Grand Lift of Dectus or via the Ruins Strewn Precipice. Regardless of the way you trigger the Radahn Festival, you can just head over to the Redmane Castle and speak to Jiren to take part in it. In the courtyard, of course, you can also find Blaidd as well as Alexander as part of their own questlines. After you defeat Radahn, you can speak to both of them on the battlefield, but for now, this step is over. The 5th step in the Blaidd questline is that he actually gets trapped in the same Forlorn Hound Everjail as soon as you defeat Radahn. EG actually has some extra dialogues revealing that he was the one in fact who trapped him. So you can either go ahead and release him or progress enough in Ranni's questline until he escapes on his own. Again, the option here doesn't matter. The 6th and final step in his questline happens after being fully done with Ranni's questline. So what happens is that he spawns in front of Ranni's Rise as an invasion, and you'll have to defeat him if you want to grab his items, including the Great Sword as well as the armor set. You can also get the helmet, by the way, on one of the walls next to Seluvis Rise Tower, which is going to complete the set. Royal Greatsword, like I said, is insanely good for a strength and intelligence build, which is absolutely viable in, of course, the new DLC. You also have the massive build-up of Frost, and you can also combine this with a Falling Star Beast Jaw and have some ranged damage as well, while still mainly playing with strength. But like I said, to reach this ending, we first must complete Ranni's questline. But before in doing so, I suggest finishing the one for Seluvis instead. And specifically, you'll want to finish Seluvis questline before you give the Fingerslayer Blade to Ranni, otherwise you'll get locked from both getting Seluvis Magic Scorpion Charm and some awesome summon puppets depending on your decisions during that questline. So the next step from here is to focus on the Seluvis questline, and if you didn't yet, go ahead and talk to him at his tower, which is going to then give you the Seluvis potion. Your task here is to have Nephali drink the potion. However, you actually have 3 distinct options with it. So the first one is to give it to Nephali, which I don't really recommend, as this locks you out of her own questline, which also unlocks a new ending, an achievement, and 2 free dragon smithing stones. A second option is to give it to Dung Eater, especially once you find his real body in the sewer jail near the subterranean shunning grounds in Leyndell. This way you get him as a puppet summon as well, which is also very strong, but it kinda locks you out of his own ending. And the final option is to give it to Gideon at the Round Table Hold, which just disposes of the potion, letting you pretty much finish both the questlines with no interruptions. Now, personally, in my newest playthrough, I chose to give the potion to Dung Eater, even though this locked me out of his ending. Reason being is because his summon is actually really strong and I can still get both his weapon and the armor set by just attacking his body once I administered Seluvis potion. So what you have to do is, as soon as you reach that jail and give the potion, is to also immediately attack the body until you get the whole armor set, and not rest at any site of grace before doing so. Otherwise, you're going to be locked out of that until you start New Game Plus. Regardless of your decision, once you made it, head over back to Seluvis and talk to him again. To progress from this point on, you're going to now have to find his secret underground lab a bit further east from Ranni's tower. You're going to notice a bunch of ruins nearby, so simply head over to this spot, roll or hit the ground, which is going to reveal a path downwards. Inside of it, you're going to find a message from him, his puppets, as well as any puppet of whichever character you gave the potion to. From this point on, you can head over back to him and reveal that you know about his secret, point at which he's going to give you a free puppet, plus more that you can buy by using Starlight Shards. The next step in his questline only triggers after buying at least a second puppet from him, point at which is going to reveal his secret plot of also wanting to turn Ranni into his own puppet. Now, this only seems to trigger if you buy all the puppets in his inventory, and for that I suggest reloading the area a couple of times before it triggers. Once he reveals his plan, your next step is to find an Amber Starlight Shard, which you will do right here very close to the Altus Highway Junction, going up north into this open cave nearby, filled with enemies, but it's easy to grab. And then you just have to hand it over, and this is going to pretty much end all the major parts in his questline, including giving you his Magic Scorpion Charm. Especially if you're going with a mage build like the ones I covered before, this is going to definitely be needed. There is technically one step left, and that is to administer the new potion to Ranni, point at which is going to get upset. However, you can still just absolve your sins with Celestial Dew back at the Church of Vows, or choose not to administer that at all, which is just going to give you the same ending. In both of this, Seluvis is now going to be dead, and you can loot his body to grab both his armor set as well as the bell bearing from his tower. And you can also check on Pyria, his servant in the nearby Carrier Manor, that you can access by heading to the right side of the tower entrance and then just jumping down. He's also going to give you some bell bearings with some items you can buy. But now that we're free from all these obstacles, we're free to pursue the remaining part of Ranni's questline and specifically head over to grab the Fingerslayer knife and then give it to her. So after we entered her service, then defeated Radahn, this is when the Fallen Star strikes Limgrave, revealing the entrance to Nokron, and we can enter the Eternal City now from the newly formed crater near Mistwood on this side of the map. So our first step here is to head into the crater, pushing through the zone until we get to the Ancestral Woods side of Grace, which also requires us to defeat the Mimic Deer boss nearby and then heading over up and then left via the newly opened Aqueduct path on the map. From behind the Ancestral Woods side of Grace, you're going to jump across and continue into the city. Eventually, there's going to be a way down that you can take, plus a bunch of items and a wet blade you can get in the area. From this point on, simply activate the second set of grace and head over right up into the building with the big treasure chest containing the Finger Slayer blade. Once you have the blade, it's time to head over back to Ranni. So now that you give it to her, she's going to reward you with a carrion inverted statue. If you speak to her again, you're going to then notice that she leaves for a new area. And by this point, Ranna's Rise, which is the first tower, will now be accessible, allowing you to actually enter it and making your way at the top of the ladder, which is now going to have an option to open this chest, giving you the Snow Witch set. So if you want this, you can now finally get it. But if you continue at the top of the tower, there's also a new way gate that you can take to the Angel River main, and then from this point on to progress Ranni's questline. So once you are here, you can go ahead and loot the miniature Ranni from this open grave right in front of you, and then choose to talk to the miniature Ranni at the nearby site of grace. Make absolutely sure you select that option at least 3 times until she speaks back, point at which she's going to give you a new task to defeat the baleful shadow for her found in the same area a bit further in. So from this point on, progress further into the canals, heading over ahead and then picking the right behind the enemy that still uses gravity spells from afar against you. And from this point on, simply follow the river until you reach Nokstella Eternal City. From the site of grace, you're going to again follow the river until you reach a platform at the end, which is going to bring you down into Nokstella Waterfall Basin. From this point on, simply follow the path ahead, which is going to bring you to the fight against Baleful Shadow of Blaidd, who's going to now invade you. Once you defeat him, he's going to also drop the discarded palace key. The only thing you need now in this step is to just take the lift ahead, go down, and then activate the Lake of Wrath site of grace, as we're going to use this for the next step. In the meantime, quick heads up, you can actually use the palace key on the locked chest inside Renala's room back at the Ria Lucaria Academy to grab the ring needed to unlock Ranni's secret ending and also get access to the area that gives you the Dark Moon Greatsword from her. So for step 4, go ahead and grab that and then head over back to the Lake of Wrath. From this point on, proceed through it until you reach the Grand Cloister area. At the end of it, you're going to get to interact with a stone coffin, which is going to bring you close to the Astel Natural Born of the Void boss fight. Once inside, defeat Astel, and as you're done with this, you're now going to have access to a new exit. Again, make absolutely sure that that Dark Moon ring is in your possession, otherwise there's a seal blocking the way and you cannot take that exit. But if you do, this is going to bring you to the Moonlight Altar. And the final step here is to just head over the nearby cathedral, activate the site of grace, and then head over in the underground passage next to it. In here, you're going to find Ranni, you're going to get to speak to her again, give the ring, and this is going to both unlock the new ending, as well as giving you the Dark Moon Greatsword. You just have to wait a couple of seconds after she disappears to loot it. Again, this is a very powerful weapon, a very cool looking one, and I covered this before, so if you want to see builds surrounding it, plus of course some other awesome summons you can find in this very area, go ahead and check out the video I covered a couple of days ago. But this brings us to the 4th optional side quest, which I still recommend doing, and that is for Iron Fist Alexander, which gives you one of the best talismans in the game, the Shard of Alexander, an absolute must for anybody who wants to boost weapon skill damage. So the first step is you actually find him in Northern Stormhill right here on this side of the map, where he asks you to help him get unstuck from the ground. He also spawns in a couple more places, however, these are both optional. So one of them is very close to the boss arena in the Gale Tunnel in Caelid, and you can also find him and talk to him both before, during, and after defeating Radahn at the Redmane Castle. He still spawns here no matter if you spoke to him in the prior locations or not. Now, next time you get him unstuck is going to be in Liurnia of the Lakes, just south of the Artist Shack, after defeating Radahn. You're going to need to use oil pots to get him unstuck this time before hitting him. So you can find the recipe for oil pots from the Nomadic Warrior Cookbook 17, which you can buy from the abandoned merchant right here in the Siofra River. Some guides mention this step isn't needed to finish his quest, but I still mentioned it in case you do get stuck on it. However, he next moves to the Lake of Lava near the Seethed Water Terminus, right here in the same place you defeated the Magma Worm boss on your way towards the Volcano Manor. You can use the nearby rock to avoid damage while speaking to him, and he's also going to give you a jar helmet if you do at this point. Before you set fire to the Erdtree, you can also summon him in the boss fight against the fire giant in the mountaintops. However, I'm not sure exactly if this is even needed. On my first playthrough ever, I never summoned him and I was still able to finish his quest line. Which brings us to the final step, and that is, yeah, we can find him in Crumbling Azula. So from the Dragon Temple lift, just head over east, circle around the area, and then head over on the path southwest, using the collapsed structures and archways to reach this platform where Alexander is found on. He's going to quickly challenge you to a fight, but if you defeat him, you're both going to get his innards as well as the Shard of Alexander, and your questline with him is pretty much done. Now there's only one final questline I want to talk about, and that is Millicent's questline. This gives you two of the best talismans in the game when it comes to fast melee attacks, either the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia or Millicent's Prosthesis, depending on the option that you choose during it. Unfortunately, this was patched a while ago and you can no longer take both of them at the same time, but you can if you progress differently in New Game Plus. So the first step here is to go ahead and speak to Gowry right here at his shack in Blaidd. He's going to give you some information about Millicent, the fact that she's affected by Scarlet Rot, and that you're going to need to seek the unalloyed gold needle, which you will find right here by defeating Commander O'Neill in the Swamp of Ionia. So go ahead, defeat him, and he's going to drop that for you. Once you got it, head over back to Gowry's shack and talk to him, giving him the unalloyed gold needle. He's going to need some time to fix it, so simply reload the area or rest at a nearby set of grace and then speak to him once more. From this point on, you need to head over to the Church of the Plague and find Millicent to give her the needle, but for that you're going to need to open the area ahead at the Celia Town of Sorcery. So the way to do this is to progress in the Celia Backstreet side of Grace and then just activate the braziers to unlock the barrier. You can do this from the nearby branches and then just jumping over the rooftops until you reach them. It should actually be quite easy. From here, make your way towards Millicent and give her the needle. She's going to then use it on herself, but also make sure that you exhaust all her dialogues before resting at the site of Grace. Once you are back up, you can speak to her again and she's going to give you a prosthesis heirloom. But you can also again exhaust her dialogues, rest again at the site of Grace, point at which she's going to move to Gowry's shack. And from this point on, you need to head over back to the shack. You're going to notice that Gowry is now gone, but Millicent is there. Again, exhaust her dialogues, reload the area, and Millicent will be gone, but Gowry will return, giving you some more information and access to some spells you can purchase. Now the next step is when she moves to the northeastern part of the Erdtree grazing hill right here in the Altus Plateau once you hit it. So she's going to be very close to the edge, point at which you're going to want to go ahead and talk to her. So what you have to do from this point on is to progress to the Shaded Castle and retrieve the Valkyrie's prosthesis, which you're going to find again in a chest guarded by a Cleanrot Knight. It's going to be on the northeastern edge of the castle as you make your way on the outer walls. Once you got that, head over back to the Erdtree Grazing Hill set of Grace and once again talk to her to give her the prosthesis, point at which she's going to move to a new location and progress her story. You can also find her in the Dominula Windmill Village in your fight against the Godskin Apostle in the area, but I don't think this is completely necessary, at least it wasn't when I finished this. However, I still recommend finishing it just in case. So once you are done with that, you can go ahead, defeat the boss, and then rest at the site of Grace, point at which she's going to spawn very close to you. Speak to her, and she's going to move to the next location. The sixth step happens as you progress to the Erdtree. So you're going to first find her very close to the ancient Snow Valley ruins right here in the mountaintops of the giants. Again, you can just talk to her until you exhaust her dialogues. If she didn't appear until this point, you might need to complete her part in the Windmill Village again just in case. But once you do all of this, the last time you're going to encounter her is going to be right here at the prayer room before her final exit, and she's going to be very close to the site of Grace as you make your way to the Elfiel Brace of the Erdtree. Again, exhaust all dialogues and progress further until you reach the drainage channel. Now this is going to have you progress through another rot area, and you're going to have to again fight a boss before her final bit, which is going to be this very annoying lesser ulcerated tree spirit mini boss. So yeah, you're definitely going to have to defeat this, probably have at least 120 levels, but once you're done with it, now you can progress to the final bit of her questline, and that is to either help or fight in an invasion against her. So in my case, I chose in this playthrough to help her in a fight with a bunch of other elder sisters. In this case, if you help her and defeat them, you're going to get a rotten winged sword insignia, which is actually really strong, very useful, especially if you're going with fast weapons. You can actually stack a ton of damage as you repeatedly attack very fast. But you can also go and invade her to attack her instead, which is going to be slightly more difficult, but instead you're going to get Millicent's prosthesis. This gives you a similar effect, but also a +5 to dexterity, which might make it a bit more desirable depending on what you want to achieve. So in the previous patches before 1.07, I believe you could get both of them by first getting the Rotten Wing Sword, and then once you were done with this, you would go to her body, attack it, and she'd also drop the prosthesis. However, ever since then, that's no longer possible, as now there's a force field completely blocking off all damage. So the only option to get both of them is to go into New Game Plus and finish it the other way at the ending. But it might be worth it because they both stack and can be very strong, so this might be worth it for your build if you want to. But if you chose the option to save her like how I just did, you can go ahead, add her body again, reload the area, and she's now also going to drop that unalloyed gold needle. And then you can use this at the Flower of Melania once you defeat her to receive the Mikela needle plus another ancient dragon smithing stone. And you can then also use that needle in case you got locked into the frenzied flame ending. In case you did that prior to this, you can unlock all endings once again if you go to the Placida Sax fight back in Faramazula. The only other step remaining is to head over back to Gori's shack, who's now going to be very displeased by the news, but at the same time you can now also finally fully kill him. And this is going to both give you his bell bearing as well as the Flock's Canvas Talisman. So in case you missed the past threads and some of the other incantations that he sells, you can now finally buy them again. Now, technically, there's one more quest that you can do during all of these, and that is Sorcerer's Sellen's Questline. This is one of the best for any mage out there. It gives you 2 of the best armor sets, some of the best spells including Comet Azure, but also some that Sellen sells if you side with her at the end. So you will find her at the Waypoint Ruins either at the start of the game, but also during that Blaidd questline. Like I said, you have ample opportunities to just go ahead and find her. The next time you can progress in her story is once you make your way to Mount Galmer towards the Volcano Manor. As you head over to the north side of the Hermit Village, you're going to eventually reach Primeval Sorcerer Azure, and you can talk to that guy and he's going to give you the Comet Azure right away. Upon doing so, you can then head over back and talk to Sellen once again, and she's going to give you a special glintstone key that you're going to have to use to find Master Lusat. For that, you're going to need to head over to Celia Hideaway right here in Caelid and make your way all the way at the bottom of the cave, navigating some of the crystals and avoiding any enemies. Now, there's going to be somebody protecting the barrier over there, but once you take them down, you can open it up and talk to, Master Lusat in the back, which is also going to give you the Stars of Ruin, another very strong spell, and progress you in Sellen's questline. The third step happens after you defeat Starscourge Radahn, and you can go ahead and talk back with her at her hideaway, and she's going to tell you that her real body is actually located at the Witchbane Ruins. And by the way, before heading over there, I recommend to also talk to Jiren after the Radahn fight, so that he actually moves to his chair inside of the castle. This, for some reason, seems to also work for the next step of the process that's going to require his presence at that Witchbane Ruins. And from this point on, you can just head over to the Witchbane Ruins, and here is where you will find her actual body. If you interact with it, she's going to give you the Primal Glintstone that you will need for the next step. If you reload the area, you're going to notice that Jiren now also arrives at the location, and in case you don't see him, simply make sure, like I said, to exhaust all his dialogues back at that throne room at the Redmane Castle, and maybe even sit at the side of Grace in case it doesn't work. For the fourth step, you're going to need to bring that Sellen Primal Glintstone to one of the puppets that she holds at Seluvis laboratory back at the Three Sisters. So simply make your way over there, go at the ruins, go underground, and you're going to find it right here in the room in the back. If you give it to her, she's going to then become alive once again, and she will thank you before moving to her final location. Assuming, of course, that you progressed enough in Seluvis' own questline and maybe even finished it by that point. But after this is done, and assuming that you also completed and defeated Renala's part at the Rea Lucaria Academy, what you need to do is to just head over to the boss room, Site of Grace, and now you can head over outside to check out the 2 summoning marks you find on each side of the room. So this depends on your option over here. You can either choose to side with Sellen or choose to side with Jiren. In both of the cases, you're going to get rewards. However, for pure mages, siding with Sellen is the best option. So I sided with her, which gave me the Glintstone Chris. You can also talk to her and she's going to sell you some new spells, including of course the very strong Spiral Shard, which is again one of the best spells to have as a mage. Plus, you can then head over back to Primeval Sorcerer Azur's body and Lusat's body back at Celia's Hideaway and get each of their respective armor sets, both providing massive bonuses to their types of spells. So yes, this includes Comet Azur as well. This is the only way to actually get them. But this also means you get the worst ending for poor old Sellen. And by the way, a very disturbing detail is that through her entire dialogue about getting control over the academy, Renala is actually spying on her from behind some of the bookshelves within the same room. So this actually is something that I only found out about like 2 years after I fully finished the game. But still, nonetheless, this is going to give you access to all these items. Of course, feel free to list down below any other quests that you might think are very useful in preparation for the new DLC. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.